Hello again, and I just want to start with a question, and that is, how do you handle rejection? So my name is Elliott from Salescraft Training, and what I want to talk about today, and hopefully give you some insights, is how top salespeople handle rejection and bounce back really quickly, and particularly how they do it compared to other salespeople. So I just really want to start with how you handle rejection. What happens? What is your experience when you lose a deal, particularly one that you may have been counting on or you were pretty confident that you had, and it just kind of goes pear-shaped on you? So how long does rejection typically stay with you? Are we talking minutes, hours, the rest of the day, maybe even longer? So what I want to look at here is what causes that reaction to rejection, and how can we turn that reaction, which is unconscious, into a response which is conscious. So the first thing is to understand that the rejection is processed by the brain in the same way as physical pain, or in a similar way to physical pain. So what you're feeling is basically biology. And the important thing to do here is to recognize and be able to distinguish between what I refer to as outcome rejection, which is where somebody says, no, not now, or whatever it might be, from identity rejection. And that's where you internalize rejection and you make it about you being bad at this. And what top salespeople do is keep the two separate. Now, why this is really important is to do with how psychology works for us. And I want to talk about beliefs. And we all have beliefs about stuff. So it could be beliefs about men, beliefs about women, beliefs about work, beliefs about the government, whatever it might be, anything. And what those beliefs are, they're just values, if you like, or they're descriptions we put against that particular thing. So let's say that one belief that we might have is that people can't be trusted. So I'm just pulling this out of the air. So what do we do psychologically? Well, we have a thing called confirmation bias. And this is like a subconscious filter. And what it does, it will filter in any experience that confirms the belief we have, and it will filter out anything that stands against it. So, for example, if your belief is that people can't be trusted, and you have an experience with somebody who says they're going to do something, they're absolutely as good as their word, they're 100% reliable, they don't let you down, you're going to that will challenge your belief. But what will tend to happen with confirmation bias is simply that you will discount that for some reason. You'll put a reason against it, like they wanted something from you or something like that. You'll put some condition around that experience that invalidates it and allows you to continue to believe that people are bad, they can't be trusted. Whereas equally, if somebody is untrustworthy to you, you're subconsciously just thinking, yep, bingo, I was right on the money, beliefs totally intact. So the reason for going into this is that often that's the record, if you're my age, whatever it might be, the podcast, I know this is a podcast, but that circular message running in your head, which is saying, I'm not good enough, or people are going to find out I don't really know what I'm doing, which happens to a lot of people, by the way, particularly in sales. Anything that happens that tends to confirm that negative belief, we will just grab with open arms and take it on board. Whereas things that demonstrate the opposite to whatever that belief is, so in this case, something that demonstrates we're actually quite good at sales, we'll put that down to luck or some other factor, but we won't make it about us. So this is really important to understand, that we are very good at hanging on to the negative things, particularly about ourselves, and not so good at taking on the positive. And of course, getting rejection is just brilliant if you are looking for reasons to put yourself down. So that is essentially the difference between outcome rejection and identity rejection. And remember, if you've listened to my earlier podcasts, I've spoken about patterns, I've spoken about building confidence. One of the patterns you're likely to have, because we all have it, is to look for those reasons to put ourselves down. That's a pattern that you're likely to have. And the only way to stop these patterns is, first of all, become aware of them and then take conscious steps against them. Just recognize that that's just your chatter going on and ignore it if that's what's going on. And then in terms of building confidence, again, it's really important that you don't get into identity rejection where you make the rejection about you personally. You stand back and look at what actually happened. And that is the big difference between successful salespeople, the people who really perform well, and the people who don't. The people who don't will tend to buy into this belief that the reason they lost the sale was because they're no good at it, whereas a top salesperson will believe the reason they lost the sale was that some other factor happened that probably they had no control over, so the deal was lost. So that is an important starting point. And hopefully, I don't know if this resonates with you, if it sounds familiar. Hopefully some of it does at least. So what do top performers do? Well, the first thing is, so I'm not going to talk about positive thinking. Now, I've been involved in personal development for a long time, 30, 40 years, quite a scary number actually. But there's talk about positive thinking, and I've got a bit cynical about it in my older age. And it tends to be used as a catch-all that you can think your way out of any situation, and it's sort of an easy answer. And what this specifically is, I want to look at specific learnable behaviors that you can implement. So it's not about, because positive thinking sometimes is just, turn that frown upside down and all that kind of stuff. Well, that's fine. But, in this environment, we need to go a little bit further. So I'm going to start with a thing called the 10-minute rule. So what I mean by that is to just allow yourselves 10 minutes. If you have a bad meeting, maybe you come out of it, you go into your car or whatever it might be, and you just let yourself sit in the car for 10 minutes. Or if it's a small place you don't want to be seen, they just park off down the road. I've done that. And pull over, give yourself 10 minutes to deal with whatever you're feeling. That's what you got to do. And then draw a line under it and do what you need to do to mentally reset. Now, that might be something like going for a walk. It might be going through the preparation for your next call, whatever it might be. And it's something I would often do. I would tend to just park somewhere. I'd normally give myself time between meetings so that I could review each one before I went on to the next one. Not always, but that was the way I like to work. And I could just go through step by step what actually went wrong there. What can I learn from this? And is there anything I should have picked up earlier? And again, that will then go back to, was there something earlier in the sales process where I made a mistake? And sometimes what this will point to is that your discovery phase has a blind spot in it that you didn't realize you had, and you just missed something really important. So this is all good. And the reason it's good is obviously if you've add another level to your qualification process, it means it's unlikely that situation will catch you out again. So this is really valuable, but do allow yourself to feel. We're human beings after all, so feel what you've got to feel and then move on. The next thing is reframing your language. Now, again, having done coaching and NLP and all this stuff, I know language is really, really important. And one of the things that's popped into my head is to be very careful of using negatives. So, and the reason is simply that your brain tends not to recognize negatives. So if you think of a child and the child's running towards the road and you shout, don't run to the road, the child will carry on doing it because they don't understand. The brain doesn't understand a negative. It just drops anything it doesn't understand and it will hear run to the road. And just for us, slightly more sophisticated example, if we start making it about ourselves, or if we start thinking things like, I'm not going to let that happen again. Of course, you take the not out, and it means I'm going to let that happen again. So the way to reframe it is to look at how can I create a different situation in the future? How can I create a more positive outcome next time around. Start looking at it that way. And that's a very simple thing, but believe me, language is really powerful. And it's also powerful in the sense that if you use the phrase, I lost the deal, that makes it all about you, you're a victim, all of that stuff's wonderful, enjoyable, but it doesn't get you anywhere. If you change that for, okay, the buyer wasn't ready, or okay, their priorities changed and the money didn't come, all that sort of thing, it's an accurate representation of what happened. And what you're doing, as I've said, is you're just looking for flags that you might pick up next time around in the next deal that maybe you missed this time. Or maybe you could have done nothing about it anyway. It's just to be accurate about understanding what happened. And the next thing is to look at patterns. So this is pattern logging as opposed to emotional logging. And again, it's the same thing. It's looking at why deals stall and not just feeling bad about it. So again, just take that step of being objective, go through each of the key steps that led you to this point and look at what was there a sign there that I missed something. And then another way of just resetting is to maybe do just batch rejection heavy work together. So prospecting, for example, if you just do a block of prospecting so that you know you may well get a few more no's, but you just do them all together. And then maybe that's an hour, and then you get on and do other stuff where you're perhaps less likely to get that. It is really important, though, that you find a way of just resetting, because you want to go into the next meeting or the next phone call, video call, whatever it might be, with that enthusiasm, that positivity that a client is going to pick up on. If you're down, if you're negative, that next potential client is going to pick up on that as well, and you don't really want that to happen. Okay, so having spoken about what we can do, how do we make that a system? And that's a system as opposed to being just willpower. So I did speak about, I spoke about weekly structures of top salespeople a while ago now. And again, one of the things that can be really powerful to do is to build recovery into the calendar. And what I mean by that is just having a review point somewhere in the week, or maybe a couple of times a week, or maybe after heavy meetings or whatever it might be, but just points where you just sit back and objectively look at what went on and what do you do to move forward? What can you learn from it? If you are a sales manager or you lead a team, another aspect to this is to understand how you can spot when one of your salespeople is getting stuck in an identity rejection spiral rather than just having a normal bad week. And the thing not to say is just shake it off and get on with it, all that kind of stuff. There is an important aspect here, because if there is a pattern, it's important to have a conversation with that person, hear what their take is on what's going on, and maybe to coach them a little bit on it. So there might be specific things that are going wrong, which points to an educational gap, so that they need a bit of training. You definitely don't want them to get into a rejection spiral or into a negative spiral. And I've definitely had to work with salespeople who've gone into that. And the thing to do there is to maybe sit down with them and make that comparison clear between what the actual causes are. So in other words, just step between outcome rejection versus identity rejection. And where they're feeling identity rejection and they're getting into, that's building up a head of steam, start looking at outcomes, work back with them to specific outcomes. And the chances are that as you go through each failure, the outcome will either be an area that needs work, needs training, or it will be something that was beyond their control. And you can coach around how to start identifying those things earlier on. But it is really important that if you are in a management or a leadership role, that you keep your salespeople in a positive mindset, for the sake of a better phrase, because they've got to keep on running. And if they have a serious problem, you have to just stop and deal with it. Otherwise, it's just going to get worse. So this brings me to team culture, depending on, again, where you're at. If you are running a team, this would be more relevant perhaps. But you want to have the kind of team where you can normalize talking about rejection openly and not make it a personal failure. So I have worked with really bad sales managers who, as a salesperson, I felt that they were just waiting for me to make a mistake and they could jump on me and take me apart. That was the kind of one of the environments I've worked in. I've happily worked in much better ones as well. And I like to think that the environments I created when I got into sales leadership was that we could go through mistakes, and it was really important to understand that we needed to do that, both individual and as a team, because if we didn't recognize, acknowledge, and deal with errors we were making, they were just going to happen again and again, and that was not going to help. So there is a leadership aspect to this that, or also, if you are in that kind of role, I recommend you pay attention to. And if you're not in a leadership role, be your own manager, be your own coach. Just do the things I've already spoken about. So I guess to begin to wind things up, these are the key things I wanted to talk to. But as a quick self-assessment for you, are you in an outcome rejection pattern or an identity rejection pattern right now? Have you just lost a deal, and are you beating yourself up about it? Or have you lost a deal recently, or maybe somebody else has beaten you up about it? I mean, like I say, I've worked with really poor sales managers who operate that way. If you are in an identity rejection pattern right at the moment, then my suggestion to you is to get a bit of quiet space somewhere, quiet time, maybe half an hour, whatever you need, and look back at whatever is causing the issue, whatever the deal was that's gone wrong, whatever is making you feel or is driving this identity rejection pattern that you're experiencing. Step back and look at it, reframe everything as outcomes. So what I mean by that is, rather than making it about you screwing up or messing up, make it about, okay, their priorities changed, their requirements changed, and we can no longer meet them. The budget disappeared. A competitor beat us, and they beat us on this point. So, and then after each one of those, the question is, okay, what can I do to, if not prevent, at least minimize the chances of that happening again? So it might be improving your questioning. It might be recognizing flags that something isn't quite right. And if that's the case, what questions can you ask the client at that point to get a clear picture on what's going wrong, if that's happening? Okay, so just to wind everything up, just to recap, really the key points here. So the first thing is recovery speed. So I started with recovery speed. And if you're someone who really suffers from rejection, if it is something you get rejection and that's you gone for the rest of the day, maybe even longer, then the first thing to think about is to just look at that reset. So maybe have a 10-minute reset, but get objective. Don't buy into that it's all about you. You also don't want to get into rejection avoidance. And that's a really big skill, because what happens with rejection avoidance is that where we have been rejected, and it could be asking for the close, asking for the deal, asking for the business, or somewhere else. If we start buying into that rejection mentality, the chances are next time around, it's going to be much, much harder to ask for the deal, to try and close the deal down. And obviously in sales, you have to be asking those questions. You've got to be closing deals down. Now, in my consultative sales system, I do give you multiple ways of closing. There's several soft closes in there. So you don't have to be kind of barging in up front, asking for the deal. There are softer ways of doing it, and that might be they might be techniques that work well for you. But you've got to recognize, the key thing is to recognize what's going on for you and look at some way of a healthier, more productive way of dealing with it. So recovery speed, not rejection avoidance, is the fundamental skill that we are driving towards here. So something to for you to take away, hesitate, I don't want to say the word homework, but I guess it is to just get together your own reset checklist. It might be the kind of thing I've given you. Maybe give yourself 10, 20 minutes to go have a walk if that's what you're going to do. Listen to your favorite music, listen to a fun podcast, something to, in coaching we call it breaking the cycle, but you do something to just, it's to sort of snap you out of that negative mindset and just put you somewhere that's much happier. And even if you don't have to do that for very long. And then when you come back out of that, once you've been through that reset, you're generally in a much better place mentally to start objectively looking at what happened and doing all of the things that I've already spoken about. So have do what works for you. Think about what works best for you to allow you to just do a reset. So have that 10-minute, okay, this is what I'm feeling. I'm pretty miserable. It's my right to feel miserable. Approach it that way, because I found that works really well. And do that. Just get that checklist down so that next time you experience that rejection, you are much more prepared to deal with it in it's an authentic way, but also a much more positive way, and in a way that ultimately helps you to build your sales skills up so that your confidence is high, your results are better, and you start achieving everything you went into sales for in the first place, which would be always really nice. Okay, so look, I hope you found that useful. I hope I haven't waffled too long. It is always a danger. And there's a new podcast on Monday, so please join me for that one. Please take a look at the website. Actually, there is some stuff on there. There are some free things there that hopefully you'll find helpful as well. So jump on and have a download. The website is www.salescraft.training. And I'll speak to you on Monday. Bye for now.